Hello, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator, and that means that working together you will achieve your career aspirations faster than you would on your own. We can work on a variety of career challenges. First of all, we can work on your career progression and make sure that you actually obtain that promotion that you so clearly deserve. We can help you repackage your talent so that you can pitch for a new role. We can support you in your current position so that you polish skills or develop new skills around fundamental areas of expertise such as communication, influencing, conflict management, team management, leadership. If you've been on a career break, we can help you return you successfully to the workforce. And last but not least, if you would like to change career, we can help you redefine success so that you articulate a new career and embark on this new life you aspire to. Whatever your project, working together, we will achieve your career ambitions in a time and cost efficient way. So welcome to the third and final installment of the series on presentation challenges. And today I'm looking at presentation structure. Now it may seem odd that I'm leaving presentation structure to the end, but the fact is that for most of us it is the public speaking part which is the most challenging. That's speaking up, that's standing up in front of the audience. So that's why in the first installment of this series I wanted to deal with presentation jitters, and I shared with you the three main sources of presentation anxiety. If you missed that video, the URL is appearing on your screen. In the second installment, we looked at presentation delivery and indeed tips so that you become more comfortable, more confident, standing up in front of so many people and walking up to the lectern and presenting with impact. And so today, we are looking at presentation structure, which is more around your slide pack and what should be in it and how to structure it. And so I have 5 tips for you. And I'm going to start with visuals. We are all told that visuals can help us have an impact when we have slides. And indeed that's true, but only in the right way. So let me illustrate clearly with visuals. So here is the first image I want to share with you. Does that look familiar, that kind of slide? And clearly that slide has a photo, but how well does it work? Personally, I would say not really. If I were to ask you, what's the main message of this slide? What would you say? Are you getting lost in that text? Are you getting frustrated? Let me put an end to your misery. How about this slide? Now it's much clearer, isn't it, what the main message is. So slide design, which is often a term that is used, is not slide decoration. It's not about adding things and making the slide so complicated that the eye doesn't know where it should look. Rather, slide design is about building the right contrast between images and text. And there should not be too much text either. A good slide is one that is simple and airy, where you can breathe. and so it's really about simplicity and contrast for impact. Let's look at another example. This is clearly a slide where the person has understood the merit of photos, which should be large-sized in order to have an impact, and also has understood that too much text is simply going to get in the way of conveying their message. But I think they can do better, so what do you think about that one? You see here the image is actually reduced, although it is. I still have the slide. But see how the text stands out much better against the black background than against the picture itself. So this is just a point to say that, well, I do believe very much that visuals, images, should help in presentations. You don't want to go completely overboard and make each and every one of your slides a photo on which you append some text. Now, there is so much to be said about slide design, but I wanted to share with you those core messages, but I'm happy, of course, if you'd like to share more with you about that in particular. Now, tip number 2 is around storytelling. And maybe that's going to sound odd that I should tell you to use storytelling in a presentation, especially in a business context. But for those of you that watched the video on the delivery tips, you may remember that I encouraged you, in order to be confident as a speaker, to connect to that animated part of you, that excited version of yourself which you become when you are enthusiastic about your topic and want to share it with a friend. And when we speak to others, most of the time we tell stories in one way, shape or form. Storytelling is the most ancient of human communication techniques. So when we use storytelling, we connect at a quite basic, fundamental level with our audience. And so that's why I encourage you to use storytelling even in the context of a presentation to a larger audience. Stories have a lot of positive attributes, but let me share with you what I think are the core benefits of storytelling. First of all, stories are wonderful because they allow you to establish your credibility without you looking like you're bragging. They allow you to show success, to demonstrate success that you have achieved. And that is important if that success story is about you overcoming challenges that are similar to those which your audience faces. So again, it goes to credibility. It allows you to add humor without coming across as odd. And if they don't laugh, it can become part of the story anyway. And finally, last but not least, it allows you to gently raise controversial issues. And that's quite often useful if you're making a bit of a contrarian point. So that's the usefulness of stories. Tip number 3, ask questions. Again, this is in order to continue to build that rapport with the audience, to draw them into your message. There's two types of questions. The first one are rhetorical questions. Those are questions that you know the answer to. So let's go back to our example of that glass and the lack of clean water in the world. When you put that slide up, you could say alongside with it, did you know that 1 billion people, that as much as 1 billion people in the world lack access to clean water? It's very different than from saying 1 billion people lack access to water. So questions allow you to have more impact in terms of your delivery. So this is not so much about presentation structure, it's more about your speaker's note so that you remind yourself where you want to ask the questions when you introduce the slides. Also, when you ask a question, you will have noticed that your voice lifts at the end, where the question mark is. And that means that your voice pitch varies. And it's more interesting for your audience to hear a voice that moves about. You will keep their attention. So it's also, again, to continue keeping the audience engaged. The second type of questions are non-rhetorical, that is, questions that you don't know what the answer is. And so here the example is with respect to that lack of clean water. After you've shown the slide, you could say, are you shocked like me that 1 billion people do not have access to clean water in the world? And then you watch. And if you start seeing nods and wide eyes in shock, then indeed your message has been conveyed much more powerfully than just by the slide alone. So those questions that you don't know the answer to are there principally to act as a feedback loop, so that you know that your message is sinking, that your message is gradually getting through. Okay? So that's the ask question tip. Now on to tip number 4. Prep your points. Now prep is of course short for prepare, but prep is also an acronym, P-R-E-P. And it stands for, P is for point, whereby you make your point. Then R is where you give the reason, you explain your point, you substantiate your point, you give a rationale for your point. E is when you give an example of your point, you illustrate. And having both substantiated and given an example for your point, the other P, the second P at the end, is to repeat your point, because there is virtue in repetition. So let me give you an example of the technique. My point is, and this is a bit pedestrian, that speaking in public is good for your career. Then the reason why it is good for your career is because people who speak up and do a lot of public speaking are more visible, and also they are perceived as more competent. They may not actually be more competent, but it is the perception. And therefore they will be more often than not identified for promotion opportunities. As an illustration, let me tell you about the case of David Jones, who was promoted twice in a year. Now, David's performance track record is not particularly impressive. I mean, he's doing a great job, but not more than his colleagues. But what David is doing is he's speaking up. He's making a lot of presentations to management. When he's in a meeting, he's contributing and he's speaking up. And so I think there is a case that the fact of him having been promoted twice has something to do in part with the visibility from speaking up and the fact that he comes across as competent. So again, let me encourage you that speaking in public can only benefit your career. So that's the illustration of prep. Tip number 5, Oreo cookie your overall presentation. For those of you who don't know, the Oreo cookie is that cookie which has 2 brown biscuit layers and in between some cream. Now, the Oreo cookie is a very similar structure, but at the presentation level to prep, because as you can see appearing on your screen now, that presentation structure means that after you've set the scene, you make clear what is your core message for the entire presentation. And then you proceed to make that point, to demonstrate that key message through a series of sub-messages. And these sub-messages are the points that you will have prepped for. And through a series of well-articulated, prepped points, you will substantiate your key message and make a fantastic demonstration that will completely convince your audience, so that when you're done, you can comfortably repeat your core message that you had shared at the beginning, and everybody's on board by then. So that's it. 5 tips for, I think, a powerful presentation structure where you use visuals in the right way, balancing images and text for optimum contrast, where you integrate storytelling in order to resonate with your audience at a fundamental level, where you ask questions in order to make your points with more impact and to keep connected with your audience, and where you adopt a robust structure both in the small messages or component parts of your structure with the prep technique, and where overall you use the Oreo cookie technique for your presentation to give it that robust structure where you do not lose your audience by going off on all sorts of tangents. I hope that this will have been very helpful, and as usual, I would love to hear about your experience of constructing your presentation, of preparing what you're going to say, of playing around with your slides, so that we can share our experience for the benefit of all of us. If you have questions, my email is appearing on the screen so that you know where to find me. And I hope that overall this series on presentation will have given you some elements, some really practical help so that you can start changing maybe a few things around your presentation, and that they have more impact going forward, and that even more importantly you feel good about presenting. Thank you so much as always for watching. I will look forward to seeing you very soon for more career tips. Thanks again and goodbye.